welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires that we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe? Joe? Hello?
Oh, hey, this crazy thing works. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to be recording for the very first time from the Kray-Tron 4000.
Ooh, 4,000.
Yes. We've got a lot of catch up to do. I mean, Cory and I haven't talked in 3 weeks. I kudos again, Cory. You did a fill-in episode, and then you're putting together that weird thing we did on the road trip, which was kind of fun. But I've had lots of drama, and it's one of those things where well, let's learn that explicit rating. It was just a shitstorm of crap, a crap storm of shit. Either way, one of them was I come home and the beloved Kray-Tron 3000 just quit. I mean, it wouldn't power on. Usually in the past, I've gotten, signs like, oh man, I can't quite get this thing to boot up. Okay, I got it up in save mode. So I had a chance to save all my files and stuff. In this case, nope, it was just dead. I left it on 12 hours in case it miraculously booted, but it was dead. I mean, just dead. There's no other way to say it but dead. Just dead. And I'm not wild. I mean, I've had this thing for 5 years. So, I mean, I guess for a computer, that's actually pretty good life. And it's a big desktop. I've got files on it. I mean, I'm not missing files like, oh my God, I lost this, that, and the other. Because most everything I have, if it's a picture, I save it on an SD card. I've got, solid state hard drives I save shit on. I'm sure there are things on it that I'm going to go, oh, I wish I still had that. And I have not gone to anybody to try to save the data. Matter of fact, if there's anybody out there that has a recommendation for that, how to save data off a dead drive, just, PM us through our Facebook page, because that's next week's thing. I even took out the old Kray 2000, the one I used to use when I was on the road.
The laptop where the screen died.
Yeah. And the problem is although it works, I cannot get to because you have to hit at the right spot. Do you want to use the screen? Yes. But without the screen, I can't see it. So it boots up and I see the little pieces of the LED screen that are still intact light up, but I could not get it to work, which is equally upsetting. So I just bit the bullet, went out, got me kind of a lower end one, because really all I do are eBays, podcasting, nothing major, occasional porn here and there. I mean, but I got an Acer
occasional
3. Yeah, oddly enough, this is nice. It's a 5.6 inch monitor, which is nice. Solid state drive, which I've never had before, and I'm not used to it because usually it's like you turn it on a computer. This thing's just quiet beyond belief, and it boots up quick. So I'm just kind of interested. I didn't go crazy with the megabytes because I don't really save a lot on a machine, and I don't need a gaming machine and everything. So my beloved Yeti microphone didn't work still. Thank you, Windows 10. But everything else seems to be working. I got Skype up and running. I'm on eBays. I got the Facebooks going. So I'm sure there'll be other beefing and geefing, or what do we call it? Boy, it's been a while. But
freaking and geeking.
I like beefing. Beefing and never mind. So we're back online, or at least I am. But what have you been up to these last 3 weeks, other than keeping this here podcast going?
Well, I keep the podcast going. I have been. I actually had the last few weekends off. So the first weekend I had off, I had to go to a convention in St. Cloud.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you had to or you, because I don't understand why you came out of retirement to begin with. But
I was blackmailed by Stephanie Kofel.
good. I mean, oh, that's too bad. So, and Cory dragged me along. I tried to find an excuse not to go, but I thought, what the heck? Did we run into anybody from the show that said, "Hey, I remember," or?
Well, we were right next to Vaz Little Crow.
And that was so much fun to run into Vaz. Somewhere in my vast accumulation of crap, and believe me, when the Kray died, I kind of, you know how well I take to electronics not working the way I love. That's today's project, is to unbury everything. But I had a pile of stuff that I got from the convention, including one of the comic creators there and Vaz's latest book. But I will just have to wait and talk about that when I uncover it. But it was now you did a live, was it live Facebook thing?
We went on Facebook Live a few times. I tried to do the YouTube thing, but the system just did not want to cooperate. The software would update and then it would freeze during the update, and eventually it's just it's not worth it.
It's just not. No. Now, it was at the St. Cloud Public Library. Now, we drove up, fairly quick drive to St. Cloud. And as we were trying to find the place, we drove past our buddy Tim's shop, Granite City Comics, and it was open, even though it was early. So we stopped in quick, and I'm glad we did, because I had no idea where the library was. So we talked with Tim. He didn't go to the con, but he did have his employee go and bring stuff. And I call him not Nate, because apparently the employee that we know, Nate, he went to college. I don't know if he's still hanging at the shop, but so not Nate went. And I bought some Golden Age bags. Did you get anything when you swung by Granite City?
I did not. I was looking for a few things, but they were sold out of them.
And we had bought a lot of stuff during Free Comic Book Day anyway. So, but I did pick up some Golden Age bags because I was out and I figured I might as well get it from a friend's shop that I know. We went to the con. We drove past the library the first time. I don't know what the hell we were doing. I mean, the sign could not have been bigger. St. Cloud Public Library. We must have been looking right when we drove past it on the left. But finally we gave up, used our modern day tricorders, our Google phones, and we found our way back. So the con was interesting. The library, I got to say, was beautiful. I got a chance to walk around it, and just amazing, well lit, well staffed. They had a beautiful section of graphic novels. They very much embraced the reading aspect of it. Lots of manga, lots of reading niches. This was more of like an event, not really a Comic-Con, because there weren't really a lot of comics there. I think the one guy had his comic that he published. Oh, hey, I found it. It was called The Hitman Graduate, Jonathan D. Wilson. And if you go to cloudyskycomics.tumblr.com or johndwilson.tumblr.com, that's John Jon, you can check out his book. I got it autographed. I haven't read it yet, so I imagine when I will read it, well, maybe when we do one of our review episodes, I'll pull it out and talk about that. So he was there. Let's see, there was the Royal Matacon Navy, which is a Honor Harrington Fan Association who has different chapters around, and they are the official fan association for the Honor Harrington series of novels by David Weber. They're a role-playing fan organization, and you join the Navy, you sign up with a ship, And for more information, I guess you can go to, just Google Royal Matacoran Navy, and you'll find it, because they have one of those like really weird websites that's just no fun to read. There was, Granite City was there. Our good friend Steph was there, and her beautiful husband showed up later. I mean, it's only fair, right, Cory? I mean, Steph is beautiful, but nobody ever calls David beautiful, you know?
Actually, I always refer to him when talking to Steph as your handsome groom.
I think I'm just going to call him beautiful. You know, we gotta, you know, he's a folk musician. He had a gig that morning, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
So he showed up later, but both Steph and Granite City were giving away comics, and Granite City had like a bunch of cheap graphic novels, and I was going to buy them all for the charity booth for next year's SpringCon, but they sold out of them before I got there. I know I'm missing some. There was a couple other artists there, and if you go look at Cory's live Facebook stream, you'll see, because you did a good job. You just kind of walked around and talked to everybody quick. And then, of course, we were set up next in between Steph and Vaz. Vaz was there promoting the latest graphic novels that Vaz did. And I brought along 2 boxes of, I guess, the charity booth stuff that I sold. And I sold maybe $50 worth of stuff, which is cool, because that'll go to either to charity or I'll just turn around and buy something cool for it. And then we promoted not only the Fall Con. I had flyers from the guys. And of course, that's the Fall Comic Con, One Day Wonder, October 5th, 2019, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the Minnesota State Fair Education Building. That's your line, Cory.
You need to get educated?
Yes. www.mcbacomiccons.com. I know they've taken guest applications, so if you're a guest and you want to get one of their free tables, well, it's probably too late, but you know, go ahead, sign up. And of course, this is only 33,000 square foot of comic book mayhem, so they won't be able to fit everybody in. Not like the SpringCon one. And I don't know if dealer applications are up yet, but check the website out. We also promoted our own website, or I should say this here podcast, and I had the flyer. I don't know. Do we want to keep that flyer, Cory, or? Actually,
I like the flyer.
I may have to update it because the template disappeared with the Kray-3000. So, but yeah, it's a simple flyer, and it's got us on it. That's all you really need to know.
Yeah.
But, and where
because
you can find
we are a national treasure.
We are. The first thing I did, of course, is I went to go get gas. I went to check out the store. The library has a bookstore that they sell withdrawn books, and they also sell, apparently people can donate books, and if the library doesn't want to put them into their collection, which is probably true, they just sell things dirt cheap. And I went over there, and this was like the first $20 that I spent, and I just picked up oodles of stuff, and it didn't really matter what it was, because for the price I bought them. And I actually got a few of the books here. I mean, I picked up a book on Miles Lord, who is the maverick judge who brought corporate America to justice. Basically, there was a mining company dumping tailings into Lake Superior. You know, arsonogenic tailings, cancer-causing stuff, you know. And they're like, no big deal. Well, guess what? Miles Lord said otherwise. $2 for the hardcover. Picked up Logic Comics, An Epic Search for Truth for $3. Superhero Strip Artists and Talking Animals, Minnesota's Contemporary Cartoonist by Britt Adamant, $1.50. Another book called Comics with an X, and Graphic Novels, A History of Comic Art for $5. Locos, the Maggie and Hopi stories from Jamie Hernandez. And that doesn't even count the trade paperbacks I picked up and some comics, because they're like lost in the mess of the implosion of the Kray-3000. Lots of stuff. As soon as I got back to the table, I told Cory, go over there and check this out. And I think a couple of podcasts ago, you talked about some of the stuff you found. Anything? Yeah. Did you get a chance to read any of it, or was there anything that you want to comment more on? Or
No, I've just been tearing through the Doc Savage books. There were 4 of them in hardcover, and I bought them all. And
Oh,
they're just from the real early era of Doc Savage. And they they're they came out around the time of the movie. They were published by Whitman, who also at the time was publishing Little Golden books, believe it or not. And they were just nice little hardcovers of some early Doc Savage stuff.
cool. No, I posted pictures on my Facebook account if you want to see some of the stuff. I also posted it to the St. Cloud Library website, so you can go check it out and just see some of the stuff. Now, I have a question to ask the Strode.
Ooh, and Ask the Strode.
Yes,
I don't even know if I remember how to do these.
I think you have a thinking grenade, and or no, that's me, and you put on your thinking cap. Now, did you enjoy the con?
It was okay.
Because it wasn't really a big
if
con.
I'm going to be blunt, it was not worth the drive.
So more of a local thing, not really go out of your way.
Very much a local thing, kind of a community event. If I lived in St. Cloud, I really would have liked it, but to drive an hour and a half to get there, not so much. It was a comic gathering and not a convention.
Yeah, kind of a celebration. Part of what they did is they had a lot of cosplay, and you got an interesting cosplayer right away.
Yes, we talked about. I said one of our jokes is that I will only take pictures with the Spider-Gwen cosplayers, and we talked about this previously on the podcast. There was a 6-year-old dressed as Spider-Gwen, and she actually has read the comic. Which
I think is brilliant.
And I want to bring this up because while we were gone, San Diego came about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And an older comic editor was taking pictures of cosplayers and asking if they knew who created the character.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a young woman dressed as Elektra. And she, posted the picture with, I can't believe that this cosplayer doesn't even know that Frank Miller created Elektra. And my first thing I said was, you do realize Frank Miller has not touched the character of Elektra in 30 years. And the second thing is, let's say this woman was 21. Elektra was created almost 40 years ago. Joe, when you were 21, do you know who, even now, do you know who the creator of the Cats and Jammer Kids was?
No.
Do you know who the creator of the Phantom was? Do you know who the creator of the Shadow was?
That one I knew. The second one I didn't.
Do you know the creator of Doc Savage?
No.
See?
I know the characters, though.
I really dislike this whole, these cosplayers, they don't even know who created and worked on the books. Well, first off, you're talking about stuff that's 20, 30, 40 years old. And while we know this stuff because we're hardcore, most people don't. When I was reading comics in my teens, the characters from the Golden Age, I didn't know who created them unless there was something written up about them. Also, when we were reading comics, you had the bullpen bulletin page in Marvel.
No interwebs, kids.
Yeah. And they would really hype the creators. Now, you read the comics, they don't hype the creators at all. There's no bullpen bulletin page. There's once in a while there's a letters page. You pick up a trade paperback, there's very little about the creators. We really need to stop this. They don't even know who created blah, blah, blah.
I'm like, dude, how long did it take you to come up with a bitch like that to like hit people over the head with? You got to be really anal to come up with some shit like that.
And I even posted on Facebook. I love They Might Be Giants. I do. But I only know the 2 Johns. I don't know any of the other people in the band. I don't know who their producer was. I don't know who their record company is. Now, when I listened to Michael DeBar on my morning drive into work, he's a musician who does the morning show on Little Steven's Underground Garage. He will talk about the producers, and he'll give background information on all of the recordings and stuff like that, because he's a musician. I could turn it to another music channel. They would play the same song. I would be lucky if I heard what the name of the song and the band was.
Yeah, there's like zero backsell. Never has been.
And we've got to get away from this, you don't know enough to be a fan. That was the one thing I really liked about this convention. Most of these people were, for lack of a better term, civilians. They weren't hardcore fans.
Nope.
They were just there, and they would ask a question, and you could, you even made a joke about how somebody asked, and I brought up Kirby, and they were talking about something, and I sort of said, oh, boom, 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 boom. And this person looked, it was like a really good college lecture to this person. He was like, I didn't know any of that stuff.
Well, here, listen to our podcast, and I hope that if you're listening, thank you very much. I do. Now, did you run into Buddy Christ?
Yes, I did. He was a huge wrestling fan.
Yes. Oh, we talked wrestling. That was fun. I hope to see him at FallCon, because I gave him the thing, and I said, yeah, we do cosplay as well. Just come on in and have some fun. So it'd be interesting to see. First of all, if you are someone is trying to podcast out for the first time, I have no idea if this is their first episode, but thank you. We appreciate it. Give us some feedback. Let us know what you think. If you get tired of me saying the word shit, I've been yelled at before. I think I've said it. What? How many times you say it before the world goes to heck? Oh well.
I don't
watch South Park again. Sorry.
We used to have someone who complained about the running jokes we use.
Yes.
So we kept the running jokes and got rid of the person.
That works. Now, did we talk about? Afterwards we went to book review. I think we talked a bit about that.
Yep, you talked about it a couple of times.
Yeah, and then Dave and Steph took us to Star of India, which was kind of cool because they walk in there like Norm walks in and cheers. So, but I just wanted to cover it because I know Cory, we recorded some stuff, but I guess the levels were really low, really bad, and Cory's in the midst of our trip down to southern Minnesota, visiting the comic stores there. So we'll revisit that too. And I just thought we'd mention the con. Will we do it next year? Well, I have no idea what kind of blackmailing stuff they're going to give Cory, but it'll probably happen again because it sounds like the creator of it really enjoyed it. And if I go next year, I will probably end up bringing maybe some more dollar books, just the cheap stuff to sell, maybe a couple big books just to show off. But and maybe just if we get a bunch of freebie books, the type of things that I'll donate for the grab bags of FallCon, I'll bring that because that seemed to be the big event, more of a promotion of comics, not really a Comic Con. Although we got one coming up, Nerding Out, other than FallCon, Nerding Out Con 2 is in Rochester, Minnesota, August 10th and 11th. www.nerdingoutcon.com. And this is tied into one of the shops that we visited, Nerding Out down in Rochester. They've got a lot of pro wrestling guys down there. Jake the Snake, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Chris Sullivan, plus a lot of other creators, over 70 vendors with comics, vintage toys. So it sounds like, and I guess they're going to have a bunch of vehicles too. The Mystery Machine, Ghostbusters, Ecto-1, the TARDIS. Hey now. So head to the website, check it out. It's going to be at 1570 Fairgrounds Avenue, Southeast in Rochester, which I would guess would be what, the Fairgrounds? I don't know. It's all on Facebook. I don't know if I'm going to go visit that one because, we'll talk about that later in Freaking Geeking stuff. But, I'm sure there's other cons going around. What's been killing me lately, though, is for all the stuff going on in the weekends, and I haven't been able to go to a lot of it because mainly I've got, the new expense of my new plate thing.
You should probably also talk about why you couldn't record last week. Me, I was all ready.
No,
set.
We will get to the. Oh, okay. I'll bring it up. It was in my geeking, because one of the things I wanted to do is since I have the weekends off now, and I probably won't get the weekends off with our new bid coming up, which I don't know if I've mentioned, but twice a year TSA bids, and with seniority, people move around, and there's always some movement. And for the leads that are at Minneapolis were a little worried because there's some guys who have come down from headquarters, demoted themselves, and now they have higher seniority. So the question is always, where are they going to go? Well, they're probably going to go to T2 and take a weekend spot. That's pretty much the given. There's a guy who, geez, dude, I'm going to retire February 6th, 2025. It's just a given. It's happening. I don't care. I mean, again, save this podcast because years from now I might go, I'm going to stick around for a little bit. But at 60, I mean, seriously, I could retire at 58 because I have all the requirements done, but I want to get to 60. And then, of course, I know 62 Social Security, 65, whatever, and 70, I'll be dead. So whatever. But, I mean, this guy's just been sticking around. And you're like, why are you sticking around? Retire. Go enjoy. I mean, some guys, I swear, they get to that part of life and they don't want to let go. And I'm like, I got a room full of stuff. I am surrounded by at least 300 things I want to put on eBay. And, I've got books to read. I'd like to go to these different cons and stuff. Anyways, she who must be obeyed, my wife, said, hey, let's go to the Blueberry Festival up in Ely, Minnesota. And I'm like, okay, 40,000 people descending upon a town of maybe 4,000. I don't know where the hell we're going to park. We couldn't even stay within 50 miles of the place. We ended up staying in, I think it's called Pewabic, Minnesota, a little bit outside of Virginia, at a resort called Giants Ridge. Very, very beautiful place. Not a lot of people there. It's a ski area, but this time of year it's usually golfers. We did see a bride and her bridesmaid running around, so that was kind of cool. They actually turned on the chairlift for them so they could take pictures going up and down the chairlift, which we thought was kind of fun. We lucked out. We went up Saturday, came home Monday, and we got there. It's pretty much, Cory, have you ever been to like Taste of Minnesota?
Yeah. We even have a Taste of Chaska.
It's just like that. Vendors are set up. They're selling stuff. Some of them are local. Some of them came from St. Paul. I imagine there's a whole group of people, just like going to cons, that are they come to these things. Oddly enough, all the places that sell blueberries were sold out. We did, however, have blueberry pie.
Ooh.
And it was awesome. Oh, if I could have figured out how to get a piece back to you, Cory, I wouldn't have. I just would have eaten it there. So we went up there.
Don't share pie.
We don't. The drive.
People are shocked when I say that. I don't share pie. I don't care. I don't share pie.
He also doesn't share these certain potato chips that you get from Illinois.
Damn right, because they're hard to come by.
Well, not if you're in Illinois. You got a lifeline. You could probably call your mom or sister and say, hey, could you send me a box?
Yeah, when they do send a box, the shipping actually costs more than the potato chips.
Well, that's what you get for having a very distinguished palate.
Yeah, that's what I get for moving away from there.
Now, the drive from where we were to Ely was really nice. It goes through state forests. We have a couple of different options. The rest of it, I'll probably talk about when we get to geeking. But, I basically just told Cory, yep, going to be gone. Forget it. You're on your own. Screw it.
And I was okay because, I have had the last couple of weekends off. So the first weekend off that I didn't have to drive all over the universe was actually last weekend. I sat and I have an omnibus, and I read the omnibus over the weekend.
Which one?
The Flash by Francis Manipool.
Ooh.
And it was one where I didn't pick up the Flash after I kind of lost interest in the New 52, but I'd heard good things about the Francis Manipool stuff, and then they reprinted a couple issues in those Walmart books, and it's like, okay, I really like this. And somebody on Facebook in the Omnibus Collectors Group was selling off their copy for $40.
Jeez. Nice.
$100 omnibus for $40. And I thought, well, it's got to be beat to hell. Nope. I just read it. and I need to basically he needs to raise money to fix his car. So I'm happy to give him the money to fix his car. He sold off a bunch of them. Most of them I had, but that one is like, oh, I'll get that. And it showed up, and I just, Saturday, in between watching wrestling and doing some long-needed reorganization and cleaning in the house, because that weekend I actually realized I had not had a full weekend off, even before I got my eye surgery, because I would come in and do the sleep shifts at the group home. And really, when I had my eye surgery, there wasn't much I could do. Then, right after that, I was, thrown in where I was at the group home every night, all the time. So a lot of it is I would just get home. I'm too tired to do anything. So I'm kind of digging out from that 6 months of craziness. So I got caught up on my TV watching and read that omnibus, and I didn't go anywhere or do anything other than take care of stuff in the house. And even Sunday night, it's like, I should drive up and go to the grocery store, and it's, nah, I'm just going to order a pizza. And it was a little upsetting because I wanted to order Chinese food. And, we've got like 3 or 4 places here in Chaska that say they offer delivery. Oh, no, delivery on Sunday after 6. So, and then yesterday, I went over to my friend Tommy's house, and we had a bad movie get together. And the weird thing was, 2 of the 3 movies weren't bad.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, they were from the Sinister Cinema. They were unbelievably obscure. One of them we watched was Daughter of Horror, which, Joe, have you ever seen the original Blob?
Actually I have.
Okay, remember the movie theater where the Blob attacks?
Yeah.
The movie they're showing in that movie theater is Daughter of Horror, which is actually it's a movie with no dialogue. No, there's sound effects and music and everything. No dialogue. When it was first released, it was called Psychosis. And then they released it again with some narration because it was a little confusing to people, because it's basically this woman had a dream and was talking about it in the office of this motion picture distributor. She worked for a motion picture distributor, and they said, we can make a movie out of that. And you watch it, and it's a mid-50s movie that looks like a mid-80s experimental art film. And while, I would not hold it up as a classic, I did watch it, and I thought, this is really cool. This is such a cool idea. And then the next one was Voyage to the End of the Universe, which was released by American International, which was the company Roger Corman worked for. It was a Czechoslovakian science fiction film that they overdubbed for the U.S. And here's the thing, most science fiction films, early 60s, that are being put out by American International, had a budget of like maybe $100,000 if you're lucky. This thing had really cool sets. The special effects were actually well done. You could tell they put money into it. The bad thing was they had edited it, so there were sequences where, you'd get this 15-minute sequence that wasn't referenced before or after. We found the spaceship, and everybody on it's been dead for 700 years. Okay, now we're moving on to something else. Because they probably cut the dialogue-intensive sequences that explained what they'd found. But, not really much in the way of terrible movies. But I've been keeping up on comics. I read some of the news coming out of San Diego. Not a lot of big news. But the one thing that fits for what we do here, the Walmart books are ending as of issue 14 and being relaunched, all number 1s. But the new ones will be available through comic shops. So when you get your DC previews, you'll actually see them listed. I
would actually recommend, and we talked about this when they first come out, but that we already know some of them have gone up in price. But boy, you're talking, if you got a set of these babies, you probably want to just keep them in great shape, because years from now, that's the type of thing that's going to be collectible. I have no idea what the print run on these are. I have no idea how many people bought them versus how many people picked them up. Cory, you've run around to different Walmarts. I mean, were they readily available when you went for them, or were they hunt and search?
It would depend. We went to 2 Walmarts. Remember, the first one we went to, they only had 3 of the 6. And then the second Walmart we had was more what you see when they first come out. They have, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 of each one. And you finally, I don't know if you've ever seen it before, but there's the display. They have a new display which has 6 pockets rather than 4. And they had a few of the old ones. And then you finally got to see the 10-pack that they've been talking about.
Yeah.
And which is why I haven't picked up the 10-pack. It's one of the $5 Walmart books, and then the rest are just DC stuff, DC overstock.
Well, I picked up a couple of the ones that had the exclusive Walmart cover, and then a bunch of out-of-print Marvels. So I got like the Captain Marvel #1 exclusive cover, the Black Cat #1 exclusive cover that was with the packs. And those actually are going for about the cost of the pack on the eBays. I should have probably just picked them all up, but unfortunately, all got that ding. What do we call it? The comic shop ding right in the middle, so they weren't truly. But yeah, I mean, I did not have anything memorable in the other pile. Because they had like 10 comics in them. Matter of fact, I don't even know where the heck they are. They're probably just going to end up going in a dollar bin, for the charity booth or something. Or maybe to St. Cloud Library Con.
One thing I find interesting with the new $5 books, they're not doing a Superman series so far. Think about that. Okay, we've got this line of books that's available in the mass market. Superman doesn't sell well enough. Justice League didn't sell well enough, so it was replaced by Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman sold better than the Justice League. Flash sold better than the Justice League. Swamp Thing sold better than Justice League.
I do have one question, though, about some of the San Diego Comic-Con news. And I'm afraid, Cory, I'm afraid you're going to have to open up the books on this show, because I need to see our income revenue.
You've eaten the last of the petty cash.
Well, no, see, what I'm thinking is, you heard about what's coming up on the CW shows, right?
Yes.
And they're basically took an idea that I know we talked about on this here podcast, and they either paid you for it or they just stole it.
They just stole it. We haven't gotten paid for these ideas.
And I'm talking about, they are going into the past, and they are bringing all these characters, like Burt Ward. I don't know if he's playing Robin or a current Batman or Red Hood or whatever. Brandon, what was his name that played in Superman Returns?
Brandon Roush?
Yes, he's coming back as Superman. Linda Carter's coming back as Wonder Woman. All part of the CW Crisis on Infinite Earths that's going to be hitting this fall, which is absolutely brilliant. I mean, I think this is great. It's a nod to everybody in the past. They already had in the last crossover run, and again, I lost the names in the crash, but the guy who played the Flash in the 80s, he had appeared as Jay Garrett, but he also appeared. Yeah, he appeared as the Flash we know, and he was basically leaving a Earth that all the heroes but him had died. So they're bringing back all the it's just brilliant. You got all these TV shows, you got all these actors that would probably love to come back and reprise the role. I mean, Linda Carter's been in the Supergirl as was she the president? I forget. But to come back as Wonder Woman, I mean, every time they announce one of these, I'm fan geeking. It's kind of like what I said about the Spider-Man movies. Bring back Tobey Maguire and Andy and Nick from the 80s. Heck, somebody even mentioned, you could probably find the guy who did that Spider-Man Japanese show and just do a Spider-Verse in a movie form. Just brilliant, fun ideas. And I was talking with my daughter Holly about this, and I said, "Now, do you understand? You understand the multiverse, right?" "Yeah, I get it." And then she was talking about, well, who's the Superman in the New 52? And I had to stop and I said, okay, how detailed do you want to get? And we talked about Batman 75, and she knows the Watchmen characters. And I said, okay, basically Dr. Manhattan's in the DC universe. He's the one that's been effing around. And we don't know to what extent because the books are super late. But and I remember reading that Doomsday Clock 10, and I think I texted you right away, like, holy sweet bejesus, this was brilliant. And, she hung with me, and I said, so the current Superman is from, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cory, what we would have considered Earth 1, he's married with a son.
Yes.
And I don't know why they came over from Earth 1, or if they're, we're here, we're just going to stay. Or if the other characters are even aware of that, because I don't even know if the New 52 Superman has been even mourned, or if they even realize he died. That's how detached I am. But these are questions now. It's like, DC, you're doing some interesting stuff. Keep it up, because you're getting my attention real fast.
There was also a lot of talk at San Diego about DC's big changes. One of the things is that the young adult books are doing very well outside the comic market. So in 2020, they're like signing people right and left to do these books. And they haven't made a lot of major announcements, but I would look for lots of announcements of those in the coming months, because there are
a lot of retailers complaining, oh my God, we don't have access to these. Yeah, you do.
You do. You just know your clientele doesn't buy them because you're not advertising to the same people. Yep. By the way, Joe, here's a Does Joe Know?
Uh-oh.
From last year's graphic novel sales, what is by far the most popular comic book character in the U.S.?
Comic book character?
Yep. Not even. No one is even within 50%.
I know it's not Alfred E. Newman. I'll just take a stab and go with Spider-Man.
Dogman.
Dogman? Who's that?
Dogman is a character in a series of young adult scholastic book comics that sells through schools and bookstores. Outsells everything else with a continuing character in the comic book field. If you go by BookScan's numbers, outsells it 2-1. You don't even know the character. Why? This is not an insult. It's not for you.
Yep. So smile.
It's
it takes
for
guts.
boys age 8 to 12.
Sisteras.
It's a lot like in the 90s with Captain Underpants.
Drama. Ghosts. Roller girls. Sorry, I'm just talking about Raina Telgemeiner's graphic novels. Yeah.
But every so often I like to point that out when people start losing their minds.
Yeah, and there's a lot
of sales are down. And, no, actually, 2018 was the biggest year ever for comic sales, ever. Every so often, when they do that, somebody at Marvel will go, "Oh, funny, we had our best quarter ever."
Mm-hmm.
It's because they decided years ago we're not going to put all our eggs in the direct comic basket.
Oh.
And if I need to say it again, because a new comic shop is opened, if all you sell are new and back issue comics, you will not last.
Well, as long as you mentioned it, I will mention it too, the comic shop in question, and I'm actually going to go probably visit it as soon as we're done with this here podcast.
They actually have a tent outside
Epic
with other retailers.
Comics and collectibles. They're doing a weekend event, and I think it's like, what, 90 degrees outside? But I'm going to go visit. And they are located at 2730 Stillwater Road East in Maplewood, Minnesota. And they got a Facebook page. I'm just looking through it. I don't see a web page. But I met this guy at a toy gathering, and he seemed really friendly. And I'm hoping maybe we'll try to get him here on this here podcast. That might be kind of fun. And I'm going to go over. I'll probably next podcast. I'll give you a quick review of what I saw and what it was like. And I think it's really cool that somebody close by to me is opening a comic store. I mean, the source is like within 20 minutes. These guys are like 10 minutes away. I'm kind of excited. And more importantly, my wife took off so I can sneak out of the store. Listen to me. I can go get gas and don't have to explain anything. Hey, going, honey, going to get gas. Actually, I need to get gas. I think I'm on empty. So, oh well.
So we're closing in on an hour.
Cool. Well, let's just move on. I mean, I think.
Well, I wanted to say we've got a few minutes left before we hit that hour mark. So what I'd like to do is like with me, I just picked up that Flash omnibus and just started reading. Is there anything over the last few weeks that you've read that you want to kind of give a shout out to?
I was going to do it in Geeking, but I'll do it now. I got the Justice Society of America by Jeff Johns, book 3, The Power of Legacy. And I loved his run. When I did my mass purge a couple years ago, this was one of the books I had to really stop and think about because, I mean, I loved it so much. I got not only the Alex Ross covers, but the regular covers. And as long as DC is going to keep reprinting these, I'm going to pick them up because what was fun about it is they're embracing the idea that the Justice Society of America was a legacy. You know, they had heroes from the Golden Age, and some of them have passed on. Some of them have moved their stuff forward. The continuity was tight. They always talked, and again, this is pre-New 52. And this particular book covered a few of the other series that ran concurrently. The JLA All-Stars 1 through 8, the annual, the Secret Files and Origins number 2, and then also did the number 26 to 31, which I absolutely love. And are they still in volume 1? Because they did do 2 volumes of these. And again, I have no idea what the other 2 are. Let's see, blah, 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 blah. So I think the original, they're still in the original run. And eventually they'll get into volume 2. But, you know, again, Jeff Johns, the highest praise I can give a writer is you would write the phone book and I would pick it up. When I see him writing something, I definitely check it out. And this run, I had a blast reading. I think I took it to work, and within like a day, maybe a day and a half, I had blown through it. And it's one of those I would definitely go back to reread. So it's a little confusing, especially if you don't know what was going on. I mean, you're going to be wondering, like, why is Black Adam here, and why is Captain Marvel coming in? I'm talking Shazam. But the stories were exciting. And they just kept me riveted. They also reprint something called the History of the JLA, which I guess was a backup feature, kind of a JLA timeline, which is kind of neat. So you can kind of read along and know what's going on. Even though when they say today, they're talking about years ago. You got the headquarters, you got the pulling the mask from history's face, kind of an article about Justice Society. And then, of course, the obligatory, what did DC call their... the page where they give everybody's what happened, first name, blah, blah, blah.
Who's who?
Who's who? Thank you. See, sometimes Joe forgets. I think that would be a more interesting thing. What has Joe forgotten?
Pretty much everything.
Everything, yeah. Now, the other thing I've been toting around with me, and I may have to quit because it's heavy. Oh! World War Hulk Omnibus. Greg Pak, John Romita Jr., the whole kit and caboodle. I read a lot of the crossovers in the main series, and I have the opportunity to buy the cheap one. I actually brought it to work because I had the Peter David ones that I've since put on eBay because I'm going to buy the omnibus of it. And I showed it to a friend of mine who was reading them. I said, "This is what I'm talking about, omnibus." He goes, "Good Lord." I said, "Yeah." You can kill small mammals with it. You can weight yourself down during storms. Why, I have a buddy who uses it at load-bearing walls in his compound.
If you are at all interested in the James Warren book by Bill Shelley, you'd best buy it when you see it because it is sold out at the distributor level. Bill Shelley, who's written a number of great books about comics history, including one about Harvey Kurtzman that may be the best look at both Mad and Harvey Kurtzman ever written. His James Warren book is also excellent in that this is the first time the kind of mercurial, I think is the best word for it, publisher of Warren magazines has had an in-depth study of his life and his businesses ever published. And it goes into why he went away in 1983 and the complex publishing empire he built. He started with Famous Monsters of Filmland, which every kid who's into horror in the 50s and 60s seems to have treated that like their Bible. Mostly written by Forrest J. Ackerman, but it was published by James Warren. And then he got into horror comics with Creepy and Eerie, later with Vampirella, and then toward the end he tried science fiction with 1984 and The Rook. And if you've ever read a Warren magazine, you know that the last third of the magazine was basically ads for a thing called Captain Company, which was where he would sell records and masks and magic tricks and novelty items and on and on and on. And he basically mostly treated the magazines as if they were just high-end catalogs for his mail order business. And when the mail order business kind of fell apart, the magazines weren't selling that well either, so they just kind of ended. But the Captain Company is what got him through lean years when the magazines weren't doing real well in the late 60s and mid 70s. So I've really enjoyed that book. But a lot of what I've been doing is just kind of getting everything back to normal after that long stretch where I would only be home for 1 or 2 hours a night. And we will talk about more of that in Freaking and Geeking. You know who doesn't need to clean their place, Joe?
Well, I know I have to, so I'm off the list.
It's these guys, our sponsors. That's right, here at the Solitaire Rose Radio Network, we have ads, and our first sponsor is me. That's right, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. I have my first book out with Dangerous Dan Moore. It's the first 100 strips of our online web strip, Worldwide News, the story of the lowest rated cable news network. And you can get yourself a copy with commentary, with all sorts of extras, with signatures and everything. Just email Dan over at lordshadowflame@gmail.com. Our top sponsor, who's been with us since day one, is DreamHost. DreamHost.com. You need yourself a website, and DreamHost.com is the #1 web host in the whole known universe. Just head over to DreamHost.com, put in the code KRAYZ, KRAYZ, get $20 off your first year. How can you beat that? Our other sponsor is Graze, GRAZE.com. Healthy snacks for a healthy lifestyle. Just head over to Graze, put in the code CORYS3R5P. Your first and fifth box are free. You can get them weekly. You can get them bi-weekly. You can get them monthly. You just order a whole bunch of them. It's great stuff to keep you away from the vending machine at work. Now, if you would like to leave a comment for any of the podcasts that we do, we'd love those. Go ahead and email us at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com, or you can call 952-856-0519. Operators are standing by. Okay, it's just a place that will record your calls, but we'll play them on the air. We'll answer your questions. We love getting feedback. Tell us what you think. Ask a question. Suggest a topic. Be a guest. Send us your stuff. SolitaireRoseNetwork@gmail.com. If you would like to advertise on any of the Solitaire Rose radio shows, you can. Just email us at SolitaireRoseNetwork@gmail.com. Subject advertising. Thanks.
Cool.
And after the sponsors, I do my plugs right here. The Solitaire Rose Radio Network has all sorts of podcasts for you. There's, of course, Crazy Comics and Stories, where myself and Crazy Joe Ryder get together once a week to talk comics. We review comics, we talk about upcoming comics, we talk about comics history, anything that has to do with comics, we're going to talk about. We also have Series in Review, where we review series and kind of give a DVD commentary of past comics that we've enjoyed. There is also Solitaire Rose Radio. Solitaire Rose Radio is my solo show where I discuss upcoming comics, past comics, comics history, and interview comics creators. These are all at crazycomics.solitairerose.com. There's also the podcast I'm proudest of. That's Novelcast, where I take the novels that I have written and turn them into audiobooks. That's at novels.solitairerose.com. Over at Bad Advice, myself, Dan Moore, and Wolfie B. Bad take your questions and give you bad advice. It's at badadvice.solitairerose.com. Now, don't think that I'm doing all the podcasts, because there's also Scrabbling Across the West by Dave Coffell and Stephanie Coffell. Dave is a musician and Stephanie is his wife. They travel the country performing music and playing Scrabble over at scrabbling.solitairerose.com. And finally, the newest member of the Solitaire Rose Radio group, that's Fantastic Forecast, where myself and host of For the Love of Comics, Adam Vermillion, go over the series The Fantastic Four, 4 issues at a time. That's available at fantasticforecast.solitairerose.com. If you would like to advertise on any of these podcasts, you can. Just email me at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. Thanks. Then after I do my plugs, we get to Joe's favorite part of the show. No, not the bathroom break.
Oh.
No, not where he eats a bunch of blueberries and smears them all over his face so that he looks like he should be in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Hey, be nice. She passed away.
As Veruca Salt. No, it's Joe. What's going on the eBays?
Well, considering with the Kray down and dead, I couldn't put anything on the eBays. Surprisingly, a lot. There's a couple things you can do, and if you are on the eBays and you suddenly find yourself unable to put things on, one of them is because I have a store, I put on a mass 10% off everything. And I've been selling quite a bit. I mean, 10% is not a lot, but when you got somebody looking at something, that usually is enough to put it over the edge. Another trick that I found out is something I kind of was aware of it, but I didn't really use it. Somebody sent me a offer on something I was watching, and he reduced the price enough where I was like, hey, I'll pick that up. And I thought, I can do that too. So I lined up everything I had on the eBays that people were watching. And by watching, for those of you that don't do it, it's like you see something, you can press on a button that says this was watching, and then you have a list of things you can watch. Sometimes I watch things to see what it's going to sell for. Sometimes I watch it because it's like, yeah, I'd like to buy that or get around to it. Sometimes I watch it because they got a very cheap price and I want to wait until they sell and then I'll put mine up. There's all sorts of reasons to watch. Used to drive my old partner Pat crazy. I got the 100 watches, nobody buying it. What's wrong with it? They're watching. But I can also send offers to people who are watching things. And I did that. And I sold over like $300-400 worth of stuff just by, and some of it was old things in my in the inventory that have been sitting there for a while. Some of it were newer things. And I, a 10% response rate. So not everybody reacts to it, but just because I couldn't put things online didn't mean I was stuck and had to stop. So, and of course, for you guys, our good listeners, anytime you want to send me an offer and just say, hey, I listened to the podcast, I will probably say, bless your little hearts, and say, yeah, let's do it. And the best way to do it is through the eBay system, because then what I can do is you say, hey, I am such and such on your show. I like the, you got a Marvel Masterworks, not brand Eck Volume 1 hardcover that's sealed that I'd like to make an offer on. If you tell me what your offer is, that's even better. And then I can turn around and mail you back a best offer, and you can purchase it and then buy it right away. So there's ways to do it that are, and then because I know you're a podcaster, or I know you're a listener of this here podcast, I will probably see, I'm getting all excited because I would like pick something up and randomly put it in your box. It could be maybe this Marvel Comic Digest number 8. Remember the Archie ones that they stopped doing? This is the one with Spider-Man with Venom. Or it could be, let's see, let me grab this. Oh, no, not the Thanos copter. But it could be the 64 Chevelle SS Speed Blur Hot Wheel that I bought for some reason. That looks really cool. I got tons of stuff to give away. And I got tons of stuff to sell. Except that Marvel Masterworks, not Brand X, I made an offer for some guy, and he said yes, and I sold it on the 2nd of August. Crazy, Krayz. I have the stores up 24 hours a day, so you can shop 24 hours a day. And now that I've got a new computer up and running, I will start digging through the piles behind me and start putting some of this stuff up. Because, and we'll get to that freaking, I got some things to pay for.
Well, like a computer.
Yeah, for one.
And now we get to my favorite part of the show.
Bathroom?
No, not where I drink a nice glass of bourbon. Bourbon. No, it's freaking a geeking. Joe, what are you freaking on?
I should mention in the geeking side that Chris and I, when we were at that resort up in Ely, we downed some Fireball. Oh, that was good. Anyways, Cory, do you know what a derecho is?
I do not.
Well, you should, because, folks, when you're listening to that podcast that Cory, Butch, and I did as we were traveling southern Minnesota, what was going on the outside of the vehicle?
It was a terrible rainstorm, which you can actually hear on the podcast.
And that, my friends, is a derecho. It's a widespread, long-lived windstorm associated with bands of rapidly moving showers, thunderstorms. They appear as bow echoes, squall lines, very dangerous. And we were driving through it. I don't know if you put on the podcast the point where we were driving and Cory goes, oh my God, we're going to die. But we were driving through one of those bad boys. And that's what all that rain and the noise was. Very damaging. I was looking at some of the damage that occurred around us. And, we're just driving down the freeway. And, I may not have done it had I known it was going on, or I may have just waited till it passed. But yeah, we were in the thick of it, and but we made it. Bring on a tornado. We're invincible. I've already talked.
Let's not go crazy, shall we?
Well, that is my name, I did talk about the computer dying. We must have had a hit of something, because at the same time, Chris and mine's alarm clocks died. The Roku died, which isn't a big deal because we have all that stuff on our smart TV. We just kept it on the Roku because it was all set up. So it might have been all connected. I mean, it's just weird that it happened. I mentioned about it's all. I know Alan Moore was right. Hey, what are you doing under there? Oh, reading Little Lulu. Let him be. I talked about. Did I mention the screwy stuff that's going on at work? They changed the rules of overtime. I guess they didn't change it. They had a management directive that said if you work overtime, you cannot take comp time. You have to take overtime, which is really weird because the federal overtime system's broken. When you do overtime, you get time and a half. When you take comp time, you just get straight time. What's happened is a lot of these newbies have discovered, or somebody told them, yeah, you don't have a lot of vacation, but all this overtime you're being forced to work, take it as comp time, and now you'll have plenty of vacation time to take. And so now they're all turning around, hey, we want to take time off, and you got to take it within a year. And so somebody up high said, okay, well, from now on, if you do overtime, you have to take it as overtime. You cannot take it as comp time. Now, did I ever mention why I'm working so much overtime to you, Cory, or on the podcast?
Why, yes, you did.
Yeah, I'm trying to save up comp time because I have a hip to take care of. And now that really kind of puts a, well, how would you say, tinkling on my charcoal, because now I can't work overtime and get the comp time. I figure I need about 360 hours of whatever time. And what screwed me up last time is the furlough, because anybody who volunteered leave for me, you can't do that during a furlough. So, and nobody can tell me if I even got any hours. And even if I didn't, I mean, are you really going to volunteer anytime when you're like, hey, the government's going to shut down in a couple of weeks? Oh, by the way, Joe needs some hours because he's going to be out with a hip surgery. It was just a cluster. Anyways, this came from on high, and I always love predicaments from on high, because whoever makes these predicaments has no effing clue what's going on in the trenches. And I've actually told that to a few of them. So one of these freakings maybe someday, hey, guess who just got fired? But I'd like to think they at least appreciate the honesty, if not the bluntness. So that's kind of screwing me up a bit. Although on the other hand, as we've alluded to, if I do take the time and a half, I do have a computer to pay off, and I have me. I don't know if you can see it here, Cory. Carrying it back there. Now, I don't know if I mentioned it when I was gone. Those I was gone 7 months in Washington D.C.
Yes.
And I had pain in my molar on the right side, bottom, second from the back. So now you know where it is. I had a cracked tooth that entire time. And I didn't realize that until I got to my dentist on the way back. Now, if you want to look sooner, go back to the shows immediately before my hip surgery last year, when one of the freakings was, hey, guess what? The filling, the tooth fell away. And I had a hole in the tooth. It didn't affect the nerve, so it wasn't painful, but it kind of annoying because you really want to kind of rub your tongue on it. Ow, it's a little sharp too. Well, I was doing what you're supposed to be doing, flossing, and I ripped that entire piece of filling, tooth, whatever the hell it was, out. I'm like, hey, this is stuck. I was like, pop, whoa, little white thing goes flying across the floor. And I did find it. So I chipped my molar. Now, I haven't seen the dentist. I am seeing him tomorrow. So, again, next week I'll probably tell you more about it. But he's thinking I'll probably need a crown. Cory, do you happen to know the price of a crown for a tooth?
A lot.
Yeah. Now, there is a mini geeking in this because Chris just signed up for dental insurance because our teeth are getting old. And I've had this problem before with my teeth. As a kid, what they used to do is if you had, I'm going to use these measurements, but say you had an inch, a cavity, and I'll just say it was an inch, the doctor would take 5 inches of your tooth around because they didn't have the technology then. They just basically, it was a search and destroy mission. What happens now is everything that I have as a filling in my mouth now weakens the tooth. So I've had previously on the left side where the tooth was cracked and he filled it in, and I've had other, I got a mouthful of fillings. So basically every time I have a pain in the tooth, I'm thinking, oh, there goes another one. So I got a computer. I've got that. I've still got to get my 4-wheel fixed because there's no way in hell I'm buying a new car this fall, which leads us now to Hip Watch. And of course, I'm happy to announce, not really, the announcement of Be a Co-Host with Cory podcast month. Cory, write this down on your calendar. I am getting my hip December 11th. So the last podcast I should be able to record would be the weekend of the 7th, 8th, depending on what day I get off. And then I will be probably incoherent for at least 3-4 weeks. I did get Christmas off though, so
there
that
you
was
go.
cool. And the weird thing about it is, I think I'm deja vuing here. Did I talk about the options I have for after surgery care?
No, I don't think you did.
Okay. Yeah. See, all this is. I mean, seriously, folks. I've had a really bizarre last 3 weeks, and I'm slowly beginning to dig myself out of the hole because all this shit happened at once. Computer died. Chip popped. I got to get my hip watch. Oh, you don't get comp time. I mean, how did they say it in Jay and Silent Bob? I swear, dude, the whole world's against us. And he threw an Effenheimer in there, but I'm trying not to. So I talked with the doc, and he said, the first time I did it, he was concerned because of the way the rheumatoid was on the hip, and he wanted me to be in the hospital and stay overnight, which was cool. I mean, I didn't mind it. Nurses were pretty. And this time around, he's more confident about it because he looked at the x-ray from this time to last time, and the hip hasn't changed that much. And it actually feels pretty good right now, although the cortisone shot I had a couple of weeks ago is starting to wear out. So if you have a pain of 1 to 10, I'm feeling like a 0.5, which means it's going to wear out. And I still got, 1, 2, 3, 4.5. I got 5 months to go till I get this sucker done. So we'll revisit Hip Watch. But anyways, the options were he's going to do it outpatient or in the hospital if I wanted to. If I did it outpatient, or if I did in the hospital, then I just stay overnight, or I 4 hours later, I do the physical therapy and I can go home. If I do it outpatient, and again, they like that because it's cheaper. And then the option would be is I could go to the hotel across the street, Marriott, and stay there with my caregiver, Chris, who would watch me for 24 hours, and then the following morning I could go home. I.e., that means Chris would wake me up every 4 hours, make sure I'm okay, and give me drugs.
Drugs.
Or I could just go home. And after talking with Chris, and although the hospital option seems good, it wouldn't be at the hospital I was at. It would be at a different one out in Stillwater. And what I liked about the one that I was at, Regions, it was only like a mile from my home. So it was kind of neat. And I don't know, I think I might have mentioned this even with you, Cory. When you had your eyes done, did you go to the same place?
No, they actually, the first one was at a new facility, but the second one was at the Ridgedale Hospital, which is where you picked me up when I decided my gallbladder needed to leave.
Oh, now I don't know about you, but I would have been more comfortable had it been the same place.
Yeah, I would have much rather the second one had been here in Chaska, which is where the first one was.
Yeah.
But I'm not in charge of that.
Nope, it changes. And because I actually asked the doc, is it going to be at Regents again? And he's like, well, no. I said, I don't have permissions or whatever. And it's a cost thing, Could be my insurance. It could be them. But for me to go, I'll go in on the 11th. I don't have the time schedule. I'm always going for morning. It probably will be morning because it's going to be still 3 hours to do. I'll wake up 4 hours later. I will go do the therapy, and then I'll go home. Because I figure if Chris has got to watch me for 24 hours, I might as well just do it at home. So no big deal. So for you, if you're interested in co-hosting this here podcast with Cory, tell him what to do, Mr. Strode.
Just email me at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. Subject, guest host.
Yes. We are just a podcast that keeps on giving. And that's pretty much it for freaking. I mean, like I said, all this stuff, I swear, Cory, if we'd have done a podcast 3 weeks ago, I'd be like, it's over. I'm just done. I tear my hair out, but I don't have any. But it's starting to get better. Things, are starting to work themselves out. And I'll talk more about that at Geeking. But Cory must have some freaking. Cory, what are you freaking on?
Really, I am not freaking about a lot. I have not pulled a shift at the group home in almost 3 weeks now. And I know that I will be called up and pressed into service at some point. And until then, the only thing is like, oh, wow. Because it's funny how the last check I got from the group home was when I was there all the time, and like by 4th of July, and I worked a lot on 4th of July, I was already getting overtime and holiday pay for my entire 4th of July shift. So the check I got from that was like almost twice as big as my check from my full-time office job. And then the next check I got was about 1/8 of that. So it's like, oh, well, it's a good thing that I don't spend money like an idiot, because wow, did my income drop a lot. And looking at I got my $1,000 bonus, and then I got that huge check, and it's like, oh, what big stupid thing did I buy?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. Yeah, I bought a few things on Amazon Prime Day, but nothing. But coming back to sleeping at home every night, the first couple nights was kind of weird, and I had trouble falling asleep because I was used to the routine of, okay, you drive to work, you take care of all this stuff when you get there, you set up on the couch, read a couple of comics on the tablet, and go to sleep. And at home, I didn't have that. Okay, I need to get in the car at 9 o'clock. So it was, okay, I'll just watch something else. I'll just do this. Then I'd look up at the clock and go, 11:30? So I've had to kind of retrain myself to go to bed at a decent time rather than having the job and all of that to kind of wear me out so that I could go to sleep. Comic-wise, I'm not really geeking on anything. The announcements out of San Diego look like a lot of fun. DC, I'm actually learning that I'm reading more and more DC as time goes on. So I think their course correction is really kind of working for me. Looking at the sales, they've cut a lot of their books, but they're maintaining, they haven't dropped off the planet. They've dropped about 10% in the, they've lost 10% of the market, but they're publishing half as many books. So for them to get rid of a lot of their lower selling books is probably a really good idea. And now we get to now we get to geeking. Joe, what you geeking on?
I will give a shout out to the Micro Center Computers and Electronics in St. Louis Park, 3710 Highway 100 South. That's where I ended up buying the computer. I was just going to go to one of the chains, and then a friend of mine said, no, you should go over to Micro Center. And he buys gaming computers, so he's like real detail. And I said, I just need something that just eBay and do whatever. A beautiful shop. If you need it, they have it there. And if it wasn't for the fact they're in St. Louis Park, it's a bit of a drive for me. But I am going to definitely go back because, like I mentioned, I'm going to see if I can revive the Cray 3000. It just needs a hard drive. I don't know how I'm going to do that. I need to figure out. I know they don't do it, but I got to ask them how to maybe catch some of the data I had and pictures and stuff I had stored, including all the music that people have said we could pop on our podcast. So I'm going to have to start that over. So yeah, kudos to them. I mentioned about the Blueberry Festival, a couple of things that stood out. Guess who I ran into up there, Cory?
Batman.
Close. I call him Nort the Barbarian, otherwise known as Paul Ewart, a friend of ours from the con. Of all the people to run into, I'm just kind of looking around. I said, hey! His family, I guess either his wife's parents live up there or whatever, but they were up there going through the festival. I thought I'd run into like a cousin because my cousin was up there. A couple of them were. But I talked to him. I got a couple pictures. Kind of fun to run into him. I did find some books, and it was kind of fun because the author of the books were there. And these will be ones I'll visit as I keep going. But one of them two of them I'm gonna mention is let's see. The first one is called Adventure North, 2,200 miles by canoe in 49 days in the wild. And this is a guy who started in Chaska, Minnesota.
Chaska?
And canoed up to Hudson Bay. And the back reads, after accelerating their studies and graduating high school early, two teenagers set off from their homes in Chaska, Minnesota to embark on a 2,200-mile canoe journey up the heart of North America. Their destination, the permafrost shores of Hudson Bay. And this book basically talks about it. And one of the authors was there, and he signed it for me, which was cool. And I said, well, what about the other guy? And it's like, well, he's up in, I think, Nome, Alaska. So I couldn't get his autograph yet. Another guy I ran into wrote a book called Nature's Norms, North Woods, an anecdotal natural history by Norman Weeks. And he was there doing the books. And I walked up to say, okay, let me get this straight. How much is the autograph? He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, you're selling the book, but are you going to suck me into a real expensive autograph if I buy it? He got what I was talking. I was just goofing around with him. But, and of course it drives Chris nuts. But I love books like that. I mean, first of all, I am never going to do a 2,200-mile canoe trip anywhere. Not at my age, not with my hips. and just to read books like this about guys who have, it's kind of fun. The other thing we did do, we only did the Blueberry Fest one day, even though it was on for 3, because it's kind of like, like Cory said, when you visit one of these festivals, you pretty much see it all in one day. We bought things. There's a couple things I wish I could have bought, but we had some fun wandering through. The weather was perfect. We didn't get hit with the rainstorms. The second day, we went to the Dorothy Moulter Museum. Cory, do you know who Dorothy Moulter was?
Didn't she fight Godzilla? Oh, no, that was Mothra. No, I don't.
It was very close. She lived in the Boundary Waters canoe area and was the last non-Indigenous resident to live there. What had happened is she had set up home there with her father, I don't know, like in the 1938 or something. And then as time went on, they created the Boundary Water canoe area, and then they changed rules on her. They said you can't use mechanical items in there, so they couldn't use their snowmobile to haul things. And then the Forest Service said, you know what, you cannot live in the Boundary Waters. It's a wild area. And this occurred, I think, in the 80s, and everybody went nuts. They said, no, she's been there longer than this has been a Boundary Waters. You can't just kick her out. And finally, enough public pressure went, and they allowed her to live there under the condition that when she dies, they dismantle her place and allow it to become the natural setting that it was. While she was there, she was visited by thousands of people because she had a famous homemade root beer. And of course, she was a registered nurse, so you could, if you needed help, you could visit her. And what they had done when she died in 1986 is the Forest Service allowed them to disassemble her cabins, and they reassembled them on the north end of Ely, and they have a museum there. Their actual cabin is there, set up the way she lived it. And believe me, she had a rugged lifestyle up there. There was no electricity. They put ice in a shed, and that was their ice house for the summer. The museum shows not only her life, but some of the plants she did. If you go to Ely, of course, you're going to run across her root beer all over the place, and it is good root beer. And unlike Cory, I will share some with you. And you can go to the museum anytime you want. I've never been there, so we did stop, and we did, as we went through the kind of the nature wooded area, mosquito bites. But the cabin was kind of cool because you see just how it was, the history of her life up there. I do have a book of her, which I'll be reading, of course, we'll talk about it sometime in the future. So that was a lot of fun. I did visit my cousin up on Lake Burnside, and I told Cory offline that coming up in the future, I will be doing the cousin reunion, although I will be back in time to do the podcast, because that's the type of guy I am. And I got to come back to bid for my shift anyways, but that's secondary. It's all about the podcast. We did drive down Highway 1. I don't know if you ever did that, Cory. I know you've been up the North Shore a couple times. It's a scenic highway from Ely to the North Shore.
I have not done that drive yet.
It is worth it now because it is totally paved and utterly smooth. Used to be, there's a portion of it that as it weaves through the forest, you think you're on a roller coaster. Beautiful area. But the road was really, really bad. Well, they just spent the last couple of years smoothing it out, and there's nothing cooler than going on a new road that's just been done. And, of course, it'll be that way for a couple of years until eventually winter beats it up. And I know before Cory asked, we did stop at Betty's Pies. Ungodly busy. They actually have a waiting area outside that you wait in now, and we just took our meal and we went to one of the wayside rests by Lake Superior and had a wild rice burger and of course pie. So I had lots of pie while I was up north. A couple other things. I did visit a flea market in Tower, which was kind of fun. Picked up some comic books cheap, some Atlas comics, Iron Jaw, Wolf the Barbarian, which just had beautiful covers. The color on these things is phenomenal. I also picked up one called, I think it's Ivan Tor's Primus, Trapped by the Man Called Yang. This is a Carlton book, and I'll talk more about these as I read them or throw them on eBays. I'm a fickle guy. What can I say? Let's see. That's pretty much it for the Blueberry Fest and heading up north. That was kind of the turnaround for my 3 weeks of why does the universe hate me? I did have a weird, I don't know what you call it. Have you ever had the experience, Cory? Like I talked about when they closed the Sears store I worked in, and then the manager opened it up for employees to walk through it one last time. Have you ever had an experience like that?
Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, the group home facility that I worked at for 8 years, in Victoria, right now, the Victoria Fire Department is using it for training. So they have been setting fires to it. And then it will be completely demolished next Wednesday. And they will be doing a groundbreaking. What they're going to do, they're going to build condos for seniors, 25% of which will be going to people with developmental disabilities who don't need staff living with them, but do need staff to check in. So that's what they're going to do with that land. It's basically, we're going to create these condos, and there will be staff who either live there or work there who will come in and check on people and help people, and they'll be available to all the people who live there, but they're primarily for the 25% developmentally disabled adults who will have some of those condos.
For me, it was a church I grew up in, St. Andrew's Church in Como Park. It's not a church anymore. It was what do they call the term? Deconsecrated. They removed the stained glass, the relics, the crosses, whatever. And it's owned now by a German emulsion school, I guess one of the charter schools in Minnesota. And, one of the things that was interesting is back in I think 78, 79, when I was in 8th grade, I was a student janitor. So I had keys for everything. And believe me, I got into everything. I got up into the ceiling rafters. Now, this is one of those, the Catholic Church with the big arcing ceilings and the lights that you have to go through the ceiling if one of them goes out. And I found my way up there, and basically it says you're walking across this like maybe half-foot wooden ledge, and you got to lean against the wooden, I don't know what you call them, buttresses that make the arch. But if you lean on any of the rest of it, you basically go through the ceiling down to the pew below. I got underground in the boiler room. There basically was this I don't know what you call it, like a dining room table sized entrance that went across the length of the church in the basement to get to the other side so you could climb up and get to the ceilings. And it goes, oh, don't go back there. There's a bunch of rats. Why don't you just say, hey, go back there and check it out? Because I was back there. It was kind of fun because when during the winter break, well, in the school too, I would get in there and I basically, all the girls back then, nowadays it's, texting. Back then it was actual paper notes. And so what I would do is, because, the girls were always talking about the guys, is I figured out who the big gossips were and which tables they were in. And I would go to their desk and look, and they were all the notes. And then they would say something interesting. Oh, they go to her desk. I go to her desk, and blah, blah, blah. I got done what I needed to do. The one thing I never got into, they had a tower, and I never got into it. My dad, as an altar boy in the 50s, got into it. And he said exactly where it was. The reason I couldn't get in it, they had this 100-pound statue of Mary, and then there was a wooden door up there, and I figured that had to be it. However, I didn't want to move the statue of Mary because could you imagine an 8-year-old kid? Oh, you broke the statue, huh? How'd you do that? Trying to get to somewhere you weren't supposed to, huh? We're taking your keys away. Never got up in the tower. Anyways, I drove by it on a lark, and the German school, there's a big controversy going on. The neighborhood wants to save it. The school wants to tear it down because it just doesn't fit their needs. And I guess I understand why you want to save it because it is a pretty cool building. But even when I was there in 79, it was a bitch to fix. They had to get the shingles for the roof from overseas marble. The thing leaked like a sieve. The boiler was shot. I can only imagine decades later what they had. And they've remodeled the whole thing. The church floor is now a gymnasium. The basement where we used to use as a gym was their cafeteria. Well, I went there just to take a look. There was some older people taking pictures, and the one guy said his wife was inside taking pictures. I'm like, really? They're not stopping us? I said, no, they don't care. So I wandered through it and just went through basically flashback lane. I mean, things like, okay, here's the steps we used to go down for gym class. Over here is where the sacristy was. It's actually now a hallway that actually connects to the school because they build up like a hallway and offices between the two. This is where the priests and the altar boys would wait for mass to start. Up here was the crime room. So I basically ran through, just took pictures with my phone. There's the organ. I didn't realize they hadn't removed the organ there. And when I was in the basement, I ran into the director of the place, and I just told him, yeah, I was an altar boy here. Went to school here. I was what I told you. I was the student janitor, and I got everywhere I could except the tower. And he said, yeah, that's a trap door behind this thing there. You could take a peek up there. Unfortunately, the door was locked. Ugh! One place, and I imagine by now the tower's been torn down. I'll have to drive by one more time. But the organ, I asked him about that. I said I was a little surprised to see it. He says, nobody wants it. No, nobody would come. And I mean, we tried to sell it. We tried to give it away. I just remember one of the guys, who's only a couple years older than me. He passed away a number of years ago, but he used to do organ recitals up there. And the noise he would get, the music he would make out of that organ was both terrifying and beautiful at the same time. And so it was kind of a memory flashback going through that. This is kind of the second one I've had this year. The first one was going through the old Sears building. And now that I have my computer up, I'll probably post those pictures online. So anybody, you can see some of the places I got into trouble, and you can see the tower I have yet to get into. One more time. My extent of, every year I do celebrate the San Diego Comic-Con by buying things off eBay from the San Diego Comic-Con. The two things I got the Spider Machine GP7. Speaking of the 1978, Marvel released a Japanese television show based on Spider-Man, geared towards the fan base, and he had a Spider-Mobile, and Hot Wheels made one. And just like the Thanos copter, it's sealed, so I cannot get to it. I have to decide, do I want to ruin the value and look at it, or just maybe buy another one? I don't know. The other thing I got, oh yeah, Cory, snap into it. I got me a Macho Man Randy Savage Slim Jim figure. Oh yeah. Sealed, so I can't look at it. Anyways, I'm going to cut these suckers open later. Last thing of interest, well, two things. We're on the home stretch. I went to a place called Pizza Karma.
I love that place so
you've been there. Oh, beautiful. It's 8551 Joyner Way in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. Tandoor fired pizza. And tell me if I'm right, Cory. It's these round circular ovens that they plaster the dough on, and it makes the most crisp crust, Indian style.
Yes.
As far as I know, this is the only place in town that does it that way. I had heard I've talked about the Jason show, Jason Matheson. He loves this place. He goes there almost constantly for lunch. And when Chris and I were out at the Micro Center picking up our computer, we were like, well, we hadn't eaten. So let's go to Pizza Karma. We're halfway there. Let's go do it. And I went in there, and just like I did when we went to Star India in St. Cloud with the Cofels, I said, I've never been here. I saw it recommended on the Jason show. I like to do name dropping when I can. And they recommended this chicken style pizza. And Chris got this corn type. She got a salad. We got I can't say it, okra, fried okra. We got ice cream afterwards. Just a magnificent meal. Very cool. If you ever get a chance to check this place out, do so. It's a treat. I love too. They had this weird thing to wash your hands. You stick them in and you leave it there for 12 seconds, and then you pull it out. Everything, all the waste, they compost. So it's eat globally, give locally. That's kind of their motto. I can't rave enough about this place. And if we ever are on your side of town, Cory, and we're like, where are we going to eat? Definitely recommend this place again, because they have lots of stuff on their menu. When we got home last night, we decided to watch television, and I suggested let's watch The Boys on Amazon Prime. The Boys, of course, is from Garth Ennis and Derek Robertson, and this is a TV show. I don't know who did. Oh, Eric Kripke and Kripke. Sorry, I don't know. You know me and names. But we watched the first episode. Absolutely loved it. Chris was going insane because she's like, who is that guy? The guy playing Billy, Carl Urban. Guy who played Dr. McCoy on the Star Trek, which we'd seen,
and Judge Dredd,
which I haven't seen, which I have to. And she absolutely. We decided we're not going to binge this one like we did Stranger Things because it's a lot, it's violent, and there's a lot of things to get up to it. And the one thing I did notice, it took me a while to figure out who it was, but Elizabeth Shue, who plays Madeline Stillwell, who's the vice president of Voight International, as gorgeous as ever. And of course, what's the first thing I do when I want to Google pictures of her? I find the scene from her in the movie
Adventures in Babysitting?
Nope, Behaving Badly,
Oh.
where she seduces Nat Wolff. Oh, I should have been an actor, Cory. Just go to YouTube, put Elizabeth Shue seduces, and check this out. 2 minutes, 41 seconds. I have a new Hollywood crush. I want to be seduced by Elizabeth Shue. Now, I believe The Boys is only 8 episodes, and I have no idea how far they go in. And, of course, there's all sorts of things now that I have to look. There's been a deleted scene that apparently was too explicit for Amazon, and I haven't even looked at it because Chris is like, yeah, this was pretty intense. Ironically enough, in the St. Paul paper today, the Sunday paper had an article about superheroes behaving badly. And they list a lot of things, and, of course, me being the, how did you say it, Cory, the know-it-all comic guy, I was like, well, Preacher isn't even a superhero. Why did they list that? But they're just listing all these, like, Happy and The Boys and Jessica Jones and all these different things, even the Swamp Thing that just got canceled.
They got Irredeemable?
Well, they're talking about TV shows.
Oh.
About how these are not the Batman, Superman that we know. And I'm like, well, duh. So kind of an interesting article. If you go to twincities.com, that's their online presence, so you can read the article if you want. But so a lot of geeking, and believe me, I am happy to get back. I can't believe how much I missed podcasting these last 3 weeks. Again, kudos to Cory. He got up not only the sneak peek for the Fantastic Four podcast you're going to do with Adam, but you got part of that the Adventures in Extreme Weather podcast up. So, I almost forgot. As I look down, there's a couple things. I got 2 books, which I'll be reviewing in the future. I finished via eBay my collection of Pervert Club, which is from Will Allison from AM Works. This is a book I remember buying back in the Hot Comics days. Just a black and white. Basically, just people who's got weird fetishes in high school, and only 12 issues, and I was missing issues 8 and issues 4, and somebody put them on the eBays. I picked them up. And the book I talked about before in the eBays, where you can make an offer to somebody, was called The Stream. I'm sorry, The Scream. It's one of those funky logo titles. Peter David, Bart Sears from Dark Horse Comics. And, you had me at Peter David. You had me at Bart Sears. I had this on my watch list forever. I probably forgot about it. But when he sent me an offer, I'm like, I might as well buy it. I've been waiting for it. So I am totally geeked out. How about you, Cory? What are you geeking on?
This is the busiest time of year for wrestling. We are in the middle of the New Japan Pro Wrestling G1 tournament, which is basically a summer-long tournament. Each show is 4 hours, and it's almost daily. The first 2 hours are the people from the opposite block in tag team matches setting up feuds. The last 2 hours are because they have an A block and a B block. So if the B block people are in the undercard doing the tag team matches, people in the A block are wrestling. You get 2 points for a win, 1 point for a time limit draw, and 0 points for a loss. And whoever has the most points in the A block and the B block at the end of the tournament wrestle each other, and whoever wins gets a title shot at Wrestle Kingdom. Or if the champion wins, he gets to choose his opponent for Wrestle Kingdom. So you're getting a lot of really good matchups, a lot of really good matches. Access TV, which runs All Japan, is showing stuff from earlier that day. And when they kicked off the tournament, the first day of the tournament was actually in Dallas. They showed that live. Plus, All Elite Wrestling had 2 shows, and they announced their first TV taping in Washington, D.C. Tickets went on sale Friday and sold out. They sold out a 10,000-seat arena for their first TV taping in 30 minutes. Plus, WWE has been adding more stuff on the network. You had the Evolve Show, which is a indie organization which shares talent with NXT. Then you had 2 pay-per-views in about a 3-week period. And then they did a special event last week called Smackville, which was basically they put a house show up on the network, which I wish they would do more of. I really think that it would help the house shows, and it would also give people more new wrestling to watch, because everything you hear, the new wrestling is what people crave. Comic-wise, they added a bunch more Marvel 2-in-1s to Marvel Unlimited that I had not read. And while Marvel 2-in-1 was at times some of the most mediocre comics being printed, it's still solo stories with the Thing, and I'm reading one now where it's the Thing teaming up with Daredevil over a 3-issue story, because the Mad Thinker has made everyone think that Ben Grimm is a criminal. Just fun little 70s Marvel comics. Just got the my box day, and in it was the thing that I'm going to be, after I'm done mixing today, I'm going to be spending the entire rest of the afternoon on, and that is the Jack Kirby Complete Bronze Age. It's got all the stuff from In the Days of the Mob, Spirit World, The Demon, OMAC, Sandman, the 2 Superpowers miniseries he worked on. Everything he did for DC in the 70s. That is what, it's even thicker than the New Gods. You can use it to stun a small horse. And just a beautiful package, too. Just a beautiful package, well put together. Tomorrow's also, there were like 4 Tomorrow's magazines in this month's pack, and I haven't even had time to go through previews yet. So next week we're going to do previews. Got a lot of fun comics to read, a lot of fun wrestling to watch, and days off to enjoy it. Believe it or not, kids.
Wait a minute. I got some last-minute geeking here. Because even as we speak, they've announced Kevin Conroy is going to play Bruce Wayne in Crisis on Infinite Earths. Oh, epic. And I got a note from listener Mosik Chong, who's listening to episode 418, who gave us a tip of the cap for us driving in the rain.
That rainstorm sounded terrible.
And I sent him a note, and of course he'll know by now because he listened. She said, "Hey, we're recording the new podcast. The rain was far more sinister and dangerous than we realized." He also suggested a new game for my phone, Lemmings, because I asked that. So again, we listen to our beloved listeners.
Well, believe it or not, kids, you have listened to us blather on about funny books for an hour and a half.
Thank you.
And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
No music, but I still got dad jokes. Did you hear about the restaurant on the moon? Great food, no atmosphere. I live for that noise. Cory, hit my music.